and welcome to my channel. My name is Ruth Ann. If you don't know me, I'm from Abundant Blooms Flower Farm, which is a flower farm in West Michigan. I'm zone 5B. I think we just switched to 6A. There is snow outside right now, which my children are loving. I'm going into my 6th year of flower farming, and I sell flowers primarily to florists. And by primarily, I mean like 99% of my sales in 2024 anyway were to florists. So today in this video, we're going to talk about my top 5 selling flowers in 2024. And a couple of these might surprise you. Just a few things to keep in mind. This is not by stem. This is by revenue, like by money. So anyway, just something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is, maybe there's a flower missing that you are surprised by, and maybe it's because I don't grow it or something, right? So obviously there's a lot of factors to this. So I'm just going to jump right in. So my number one seller was sunflowers, which, if you know me, I grow a lot of sunflowers. So I wasn't surprised by this. Sunflowers were my number one seller by far, actually, in 2023 as well. So I plant sunflowers every single week for 17 or 18 weeks, depending on how ambitious I am. And my goal is to have them from mid-June until frost. That is very early for me. Mid-June is like before any other grower here in Michigan, basically. And people are like, how do you have sunflowers? So I start them inside. I transplant them out, and in the spring I put them under row cover, or I would not have them that early. Also, sunflowers, when they're small, really are more frost tolerant than you think. Now, that being said, they're not going to grow very tall or quickly in cold weather, but they're probably not going to die. The blooms are not tolerant to frost, so you're going to lose them in the fall to frost, but the little, stems and leaves are pretty frost tolerant. In fact, if you go out and observe, you will probably find sunflower sprouts germinated out in your garden earlier than you think. But sunflowers were 7.5% of my total overall sales, and I sold a good number of them. So here's one thing. Despite it being my number one seller, I had 2 weeks where I had no sunflowers at all. And I had another 2 weeks around that I had very, very few sunflowers, like maybe 4 or 5 bunches. So that was pretty sad for me. So the reason that was, I had a little bit of a crop failure. I had issues with some weather. I had all these different factors that combined. I got delayed 1 week, but really my biggest thing was I was planting with a paper pot transplanter for the first time, and I made my rows too many. I made too many rows without leaving a pathway, and then it ended up being a complete jungle, and I had no pathway, and then I was just trampling the smaller sunflowers to get to the ones that were mature enough that I was harvesting. So even though I barely sold sunflowers for 4 weeks in, I guess that was in August, they were still my number one seller. Number 2, peonies. Peonies were 6.5% of my sales. They weren't too far behind sunflowers. However, I sold a lot less stems of peonies because a peony is a much more, I sell it for a lot more than a sunflower. Sunflowers are $12.50 a bunch. Peonies are $25 a bunch, or $2.50 a stem, I think that's basically what I sold them all. So for peonies, I sold mostly Duchess de Numenors and Sarah Bernhardt's. I sold some Mons Jules Ali. I sold some other things too, but those were my main peonies that I actually have mature. So like I said, I'm going into my 6th year of flower farming, but peonies take 3+ years to mature. So I have about 150 peony plants that were in their third year. So basically my first major harvest off of them. And so I sold everything that I had, and I interestingly could have sold a lot more white peonies. I mean, at least double what I sold. I can't remember exactly how many white peonies I sold, but somewhere around the like 250 to 300 stems of white peonies, and I had people begging me for white peonies. I mean, one florist had requested to order 200 or 250 for one wedding, which I couldn't fulfill that order because I had already sold some and I already had others that were spoken for. So before any of my white peonies bloomed, they were all sold with like way more than I could have sold. So that's good in the sense that I have a demand for a lot of white peonies, but I didn't plant enough Duchess de Numenors 4 years ago, I guess. But I do have more Duchess de Numenors that are going to be mature next spring. Only not that many more, but a few more. And then the following year, I have quite a lot of white and blush more peonies. I think I have 100, something like that. So I will have a lot more white peonies, but I didn't have enough to meet demand. But I was able to sell pretty much all of my peonies. I did store them and sold them dry for several weeks, the Sarah Bernhardt's, and that worked out great. And I had so much demand for white peonies that I have a florist that was really sad that she couldn't get my white peonies, that she's already ordered 100 white peonies for the spring of 2025. Like, she just knows that she'll use at least 100 in June of 2025. And she was like, I get dibs on your peonies. I'm ordering 100 of them for 2025. And I was like, okay, the white ones particularly, which was really interesting to me because she talked about how she had so many problems from other local growers with their quality of their peonies, and she wants mine. And I'm not really sure what I'm doing differently from this other grower. I actually know exactly who she's talking about. And I saw her the product, and it was kind of crummy, and it was like getting moldy, and it wasn't very nice, and it was shattering. I mean, it really wasn't that great. I can see why she was frustrated with it. The only thing I noticed was that I disbud my peonies, and I do that because I sell them to florists, and I want to have, one really big high quality bloom. And this other flower farmer definitely did not do that. I don't know if that made such a big difference or if it's the way this other person is storing them, but that was definitely something I noticed that was different, that I do. And I'm going to continue to do it, even though it is a pain in the neck. But I think when you're selling to florists specifically and you're trying to get top dollar, that can be helpful. So, okay, number three in sales was Snapdragons. So I sold quite a lot of Snapdragons. Snapdragons aren't nearly as expensive as sunflower or peonies. So I sold quite a lot of Snapdragons. I've long known that Snapdragons are just really sought after, really desired, really used in high quantities by florists, both brick and mortar florists and wedding and event florists. And this really shown this year that I had some more quantity than I've had in the past. I have a really hard time growing Snapdragons. I just don't germinate Snapdragons well. I know some people that do it great, and that's great, good for them, but I don't. I have a really hard time germinating Snapdragons, especially getting Snapdragons germinated at a high quantity every 2 to 3 weeks for, a good number of successions throughout the summer. So I gave up germinating Snapdragons and I order plugs. So much so that I have plugs ordered, set to come every 2 to 3 weeks for multiple successions already for 2025. They're all coming from Ball, which is where I'm ordering them from. So anyway, that set me up this season to sell more Snapdragons than I've ever sold. I was able to sell basically all of my Snapdragons with demand for a lot more. So I'm looking forward to having more next year. And to me, they honestly are a pretty easy plant because I order the plugs come, they're gorgeous and beautiful, and I plant them out. And I have a good stand of Snapdragons. So some of my favorites are Madam Butterfly, the cherry bronze. Is that what it's called? I'll put a picture of it on the slide. I had a lot of them. I also really love apple blossom, and then the Royal Potomac or Potomac Royal. I love that color. Those are the strongest, tallest. They are incredible snapdragons. The only thing I don't like about them is they're not a double, and single or like the traditional snappy tongue is much more accessible from wholesalers. I mean, so is apple blossom. Apple blossom's also a traditional snappy tongue, but I think they make up for it in their color and strength, and they're just a really great snapdragon. But most of my florists do prefer the double snapdragons, and the Chantilly or the Madame Butterfly Cherry Bronze is just a phenomenal snapdragon. In fact, I have that coming every 2 weeks all season next year. Okay, I think that's it for snapdragons. So number 4. This one might surprise you a little bit. Number 4 is Yarrow. It was a bit behind snapdragons. 4.8% of my sales was Yarrow. So Yarrow, and this is all the varieties of Yarrow that I've sold. So this is all the Yarrow together. Mostly I sell Colorado mix, and then I can't remember what variety I have, but one of those bright yellows. Everybody loves that one too. I don't really like it. I think it's kind of a nasty color, but anyway, everybody likes it. So everybody wanted Yarrow. I sold so much Yarrow, and almost all of this Yarrow was sold off of beds that were either 1 or 2 or 3 years old. So Yarrow's a short-lived perennial for me anyway, in zone 6. I get a good 2 to 3 years out of it. I mean, year 3 and really year 2, it is just gorgeous and full, and you don't have to do anything to it. It takes over the bed. You don't have to weed it. I do put fertilizer down in the spring. And I mean, you don't have to weed it. It's on drip, but I don't even think it would need it unless we were in a drought or something. And it just grows prolific. I mean, like thousands of blooms. It's crazy. And the bed is just so full and absolutely gorgeous. All that to say is Yarrow is actually a really helpful flower to florists. They need that. They need this not super expensive flower. So like Ellen Frost from Local Color Flowers, she's a florist who uses all local flowers. She lives in Baltimore and she has a shop. Anyway, she says that florists need the filler flowers. You know, they can't spend all their money on dahlias because they don't have room in their budget for all these dahlias. They need a flower that's not as expensive, that they can fill out their designs with, and that really plays an important specific role in the element of design. And she was saying that she sees there's a lack of filler flowers in the local flower market because everybody's kind of growing all the, you know, super cool flowers like dahlias and peonies and ranunculus, and, you know, that's all they want to grow. So I actually think that Yarrow is very profitable because it has a very low input. It's very easy to start from seed, and then it grows for 2 or 3 years almost without any like input. I mean, I fertilize it, I chop it down in the fall. I mean, it almost grows on its own without anything, and just gets better and better for 3 years, and then I till it under and restart from seed. So and it comes in all these great colors. It's super tall and just all these different things. So I'm actually growing more of it next year, more colors. There's some new colors that I'm pretty excited about growing. But I had florists that wanted 50 bunches of Yarrow for a wedding. I mean, 20 bunches, 25 bunches, 10 bunches. I mean, they need large volumes of Yarrow for different events. So that was pretty good. I think I sold like 1,500 stems of Yarrow, like a decent amount. So the next one, so this is number 5, and this actually was the most surprising flower to me, and that is Nigella. Nigella was my number 5 in sales, and I sold a lot of Nigella. I sold mostly the blue fresh, like in the flower form, And this number also includes pods that I sold fresh. I do not dry and sell pods. It was just fresh sold pods. So they were, yeah, they were fresh. So I cut them, put them in my cooler, and I sell them for up to 6 weeks. I sold out of them. But everybody loves the pods as well. But the blue I sold in large volumes. It could have sold more of them in the flower form. And I think it's just because they need that true blue flower. For me, this bloomed in late May and into June. I had several successions. In fact, it sold so well. I sowed I was trying to get a fall succession, which I've never tried to do before. I sowed it too late and it actually bloomed right at frost, or right after the frost. But it was interesting to me because it was definitely tall enough. I wasn't sure if I would get the height that I needed that late in the season, but I totally did. And I think if I sowed it 3 weeks earlier, I would have had a nice fall crop of Nigella. So I love Nigella and I love direct seeded stuff, because if you just have 20 feet of something, let's just say you had a failed crop and you can just throw in some direct seeded stuff. Nigella's very inexpensive seed. It's very easy to sow. I just hoe it. I have a very good system for direct seeding. I don't get crazy amounts of weeds. And I just think that they're very easy to grow into direct seed. So I think they're highly profitable. And then I clear cut them. So when all the pods are formed and ready, I just clear cut them with a sickle knife, type thing. So they're very easy to harvest. Okay, next. Okay, I know I said I was doing my top 5, but my 6th one was so close. I'm going to give it to you also. And that was Cosmos. So actually it was like $25 less in sales than my Nigella. So it was super, super close to being tied for number 5. So Cosmos, I'm not surprised about this. I doubled my production from Cosmos from last season. And I mean, I just sell Cosmos like crazy. I'm going to be increasing my supply of it again for 2025. So I sell mostly afternoon white. I also grow the pink. And then next year, I think I'm going to be adding in like apricot and different things. But everybody loves Cosmos. They all need Cosmos. I sell multiple successions of it. I wish I had another succession of it. So I'm definitely going to be adding in an additional succession and then increasing my plantings of it. So Cosmos, not surprising. Everybody loves Cosmos. It just is this airy filler. Again, not a super expensive flower, but definitely very, very much desired. So I sold a lot of that one. So I'm trying to think. Yeah, so a couple things to consider. There's a lot of considerations in this, right? This is not profitability per crop. So obviously Nigella has way less inputs than Peonies. It also sells for way less, but it's a pretty easy crop compared to Peonies that you have to wait 3 years to even get them to start, and different things. So there's just a lot of considerations and a few surprises along the way, but those were my top 5. So sunflowers, peonies, snapdragons, yarrow number 4, nigella number 5, and then Cosmos is the honorable mention, which was almost tied for number 5, just squeaking in at number 6. So let me know, what were your top 5 sellers for 2024 and how do you sell? And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and we're seeking to grow the channel, so if you would do that, it would really help me out. It doesn't cost anything. And let me know in the comments how your year went and what your top flowers were for sales and how you sell. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.